Welcome to the Ultimate Tactical Archer Guide for Age of Empires Mobile in 2025, where I'm going to go through two different formations that you can be running from Season 1 all the way up to Season 5 with the hero progressions and the correct skills and the correct rings and the correct mounts and the correct gems that you're going to be needing to make sure that your march is performing the best as it can. So smash a like, comment, and subscribe. And let's dive into the very first thing that you're going to need to know with the tactical archers, which is going to be your main commanders. There's going to be two supported commanders in the game that you're going to be actually deciding on, which is going to be Charlemagne and Zhu Liang. The thing is, Zhu Liang has come in Season 5, which is going to be a very late game hero that you're going to be looking out on, seeing how good he performs in these future tests from other content creators, including myself. Charlemagne, though, does appear in Season 3, and this hero does provide a very powerful signature ability, and honestly does perform really well in a variety of different marches, including Sun Tzu and including in Ramses, which does allow you, a tactical archer player, to kind of get the best of both worlds. You're getting two marches almost for the price of one. One thing I will say, our Charlemagne can be played with a 3-star rating. Well, it does look like Zhu Liang can be 3-starred and perfectly fine. 5-star though looks absolutely bonkers for this hero, and we will break that down later on in the formation section. On top of that, you're going to have to make a DPS decision, because as a free-to-play and low spender, you are kind of locked into running Suleiman. Suleiman is available from Season 1 in the Legendary Iron Wheel, and he's super easy to get. Just spend your Empire coins, spin it 20 times, and he will unlock on your account. Obviously, you're going to be then using your Universal Medals or more of your wheel spins to invest into Suleiman to max him out eventually, because that's going to be your main DPS hero. For now, there's no other legendary Advent Wheel heroes from Tactical Archers that replace him. However, if you want to go for more of a competitive march, there is a harder march to obtain, which is Ramses. Ramses is available through the seasonal free Mightiest of Government event. You need to get a top 10 finish, which means you're competing against other players to unlock this hero. So just think, you can go for a more competitive but harder to obtain hero, which is Ramses, or you can go for a more fun and easy to obtain march, which is going to be Suleiman. Both marches are going to be honestly good in the open field, but just remember, one is better than the other, and that has been proven through testing from myself and multiple content creators in the Age of Empires mobile space. With this, Suleiman has a really good tip and trick too to save you guys a little bit extra on your Universal Medals. That's going to be Queen Sindioc. I know early on many people will want to unlock Queen Sindioc in order to apply silence to the target to make Suleiman do more damage. However, I want to tell you, every time you put any heroic rally medals into this hero or unlock any medals into this hero, you could have been spending that same amount of medals or money or investment into a better Seasonal 1 hero for a support role that lasts all the way till Season 5. So don't make this mistake and save your Universal Medal. With all that in mind, let's go over the very first formation. That's Season 1 to Season 3 for the free-to-plays and low spenders. And that's going to be your Suleiman YSS Theodora in the early game, which will upgrade into Suleiman, Charlemagne, and Theodora later on in Season 3. The reason we're going down this road is pretty simple. In Season 1, we're going to be hard focused on our Suleiman and our Everflame wings. This setup allows Suleiman to be self-sufficient and actually complete all 3 damage requirements needed for his signature skill. If you don't know what we're talking about, when you check his signature skill in-game, he enters the charging state for 3 seconds, and afterwards, if you've got 3 different debuffs onto a target, you get 1 additional effect for each debuff. So the first one says, if you have burn on the target, you deal an extra bit of strategy damage to the target, which is a big little bit of hit to them, right? You can see this is 91% at base on his normal skill, and then you're dealing 73% here. So it's a big chunk of damage that you're able to deal. If you silence the target, you're able to increase this hero's next skill damage, which is very important because that means either your conflagration deals more damage or the Magnificent Conquest is going to deal more damage, because they're the only two skills we run that is purely on damage-based basis, right? So very important for that. Incapacitation is recovering units to our troops, and obviously the more troops we've got, the more damage we can deal when it scales up. And as I said, our Suleiman is able to do all of this. His commander skill is going to be the incapacitation, so we've got that checked off. With conflagration, or if you want to be more free-to-play friendly, Blaze Impact at a 20% chance also applies the burn effect. This is going to allow you to then have 2 of the 3 requirements, and with the Everflame wings equipped, that's going to increase the burn effect as well as increasing the strategy damage they take and doing the final piece of the puzzle, the silence effect. And I know at level 1 it doesn't sound like much, it's only 5.7%. But if your aim is to build the Suleiman March, you got to think this is the one ring that requires you to go all in on. And having it at level 20 or level 30 is going to be enough for most free-to-players and low spenders. Don't get me wrong, level 50 and 40 is what you would want to achieve, but level 20 and level 30 allow you to have a 2.77% strategy damage taken debuff onto that target, and you get a 16% chance to apply that silence now, which is super big at level 30. At level 20, this is reduced to 11% on that silence, and basically 2% on the strategy damage to take, since it's 1.96. So you can see, even at a lower investment at level 20 and 30, the Everflame wing is very important. And because of that, you can see Suleiman here is able to be a self-sufficient absolute monster at dealing damage. And because of that, when it comes to the other 2 heroes, YSS and Theodora, or when it comes to Charlemagne and Theodora in Season 3, you'll notice what these 2 support heroes have in common. Both combinations are trying to do the same thing, which is boost up the damage of Suleiman. So if you check out our YSS, this hero's signature skill says you enter the charging state and deal a truck ton of damage to the target, but you increase the damage of your next signature active skill by your hero with the highest strategy. So your Suleiman should be the highest strategy in this march, meaning when YSS goes off, his skill is going to deal even more damage, including the damage boost from the silence effect. And we're going to increase that even more, because if we have Theodora in that lineup, her signature skill does the same thing. Instead of dealing damage and boosting up, Theodora reduces your troop damage taken, but every time our Suleiman does 2 activations with a 5-star Theodora, we're going to do 45% extra damage for charging skills, which means Suleiman is about to hit, even with a level 40 Theodora and with this level 20 Swice and Shin, you gotta think 45 plus 16%. That's a lot of damage there. That is a lot of damage, and that's not including now going into the Season 3 lineup with Charlemagne. Charlemagne does one thing good compared to YSS, which is actually fix the biggest negative of Suleiman, which is making him almost skip or try to skip the charging state. When you read the signature skill of Charlemagne, you have a 29% chance to basically immediately use their signature skill, and once you're in that charging state. So if you're in the charging state, you're immediately going to be using that skill. If you're not in it, you're going to start triggering that charging state anyway and go off in 3 seconds, which is great, right? But what's more important about this is the fact that Charlemagne, just like the Theodora, he's increasing the skill damage by 47.5%. And that is a lot of damage when you combine 47.5% and 45. That is 92.5% more damage that you're dealing with that Suleiman proc. So this is why in Season 1 and Season 3, you're going to be building Suleiman, YSS, Theodora, and upgrading the YSS in Season 3 with Charlemagne. And when it comes to the ring choices from Season 3 to Season 1, you'll notice I'm offering the free-to-play option here, which is the Ring of the Rose and the Ring of the Deer on YSS and Theodora. This is going to allow you to do big amounts of damage with the Ring of Rose, which can be upgraded with the Azure Moon, or that Theodora with the Ring of the Deer boosting the YSS damage or the Suleiman's damage output, which is again really good for a cheap 600 epic based ring. However, if you wanted to go for the best rings, like any of the other formations we'll showcase in today's video, I would recommend one of these two configurations, which is the Everflame Wings with the Skyward Knight, which is going to increase the damage and the activation chance of your commander while reducing the damage you deal with the rings equipped commander. So in this case, Charlemagne will deal 15% less damage. You can put this ring on Theodora instead if you care about Charlemagne's damage output. I personally don't. I just don't think he does that much. However, you have Tranquil Water on Theodora. This can be replaced with, again, maybe Lofty Mountain as an alternate defensive ring choice. And there is going to be other rings that you can be choosing in the Signet Ring section later on in the video. So check that section out. Now, with that, we've gone through all of the Suleiman March. I'm going to be honest, that's all you're going to need to know and what you're going to be running for this hero. Because the thing is, compared to Suleiman, Ramses is much better and requires a lot more stat priority compared to debuff priority, which is what your Suleiman needs. And that means when it comes to Suleiman, you can actually skip out on Zhu Liang at the moment for one of the heroes. With Suleiman, YSS, or Charlemagne, and Theodora, those four heroes are going to do you perfectly well for a long time until your Suleiman gets a replacement. So now, with that, let's talk about Ramses. Ramses is going to be your same setup as before. We're going to be running Ramses, Charlemagne, and Theodora. The only difference in this setup compared to the last one is we're not going to be running Conflagration because we don't need the burn effect. What we can do, though, is steal the enemy's actual stats with Sowing Discord of the Charlemagne and actually increase the attributes of your Ramses even better, because the more strategy you're gaining on Charlemagne, the more boost and the more war tactic healing that you're providing as a whole. So it's going to benefit him no matter what. Apart from this, in Season 3, there's only one upgrade from here, which is your Season 5 hero, as I mentioned earlier, Zhu Liang. And Zhu Liang can be played in two different ways with Ramses, and that is either with Charlemagne, which is a more offensive lineup, or you can run it with Theodora, and this is a more defensive lineup. All three lineups for Ramses have their pros and cons. With Charlemagne, you're going to have more activations faster, so you're going to be able to get that Ramses cooking a little bit sooner. However, you're going to be dealing less damage per activation. When you've got Zhu Liang, you're going to be doing the opposite. You're going to be doing the same amount of activations, but with the attribute steroid from Zhu Liang, guess what? You're going to be dealing more damage per activation. Now, when you've got Zhu Liang and Theodora, you're going to be increasing the attributes for your Ramses, making sure he deals as much damage per hit. However, you're sacrificing the activation chance to be as tanky as possible with the Theodora and Zhu Liang combo. Just remember, with each one of these combos with Theodora or Charlemagne, you are still boosting your Ramses' damage from his signature active skill. So Evil World is very good. It is dependent on what you want to run. So these are the three different lineups and the three different skills that I would be recommending for this setup. Let's talk about our good friend Zhu Liang. He is the brand new Season 5 hero, and I do want to talk about why he's really interesting for many people. This is because when we look at his signature skill, Zhu Liang, as I've mentioned before, transfers those attributes to your commander. So the fact that you're transferring straight attributes means your Ramses gets to scale his damage higher, and it works off a higher base value, which is much better for him if he's the one dealing damage. On top of this, you add in that 12 seconds entering battle, you reduce damage taken by your troop, and every 3 seconds you enter the command state, which is for 1 second, and while you do, you reduce the might skill damage taken with a chance to recover troops. When we hit on the, obviously, more details, you can see it's a 1.1 ratio on extra attributes gained, and these are the percentages for the amount of damage reduction and the amount you recover from your troops. What I really wanted to talk about, though, is his more skills, because you do get Borrowing of the East Wind. This says 3 seconds after entering battle, you increase the damage of your commander's signature active skill by 6%. At max level, though, this is a 30% increase in damage and an activation chance of 10%. Afterwards, you reduce the damage bonus to 15% and the activation chance to 5%, which is basically in half. But that is crazy. For a free more skill that you should be putting on Zhu Liang, you're going to be increasing that active skill damage by 30% and the chance by 10% for your Ramses. Which means when you check out his skills and you look at his skills, this is not a 30%, but a 40% chance of triggering, which is a super high activation chance and a super high consistency on damage uptime. So you can see why this is a very good explosive match with your good old Zhu Liang. So now let's talk about some extra rings that you could be using for your marches. Just remember, I have gone through a variety of rings, such as the Ring of the Rose and the Ring of the Deer. However, let's just say you want to upgrade a ring or change one of those rings for your marches. You've got plenty to pick from. Ring of the Falcon, really good for this march. You're going to be able to reduce and recover troops for your troop, obviously keeping you out there in the open field. We've already talked about Ring of the Deer, obviously being the one that increases the damage of either your YSS or Suleiman. But again, using rings such as the Ring of the Lion, even Ring of the Serpent, and even Lofty Mountain, all viable choice rings to either increase your damage or reduce damage that you take. The only final ring I would recommend out of any of these other choices is going to be Azure Moon or Sage of the Judgment. These two rings are definitely upgrades. So if you look at your Ring of the Rose, Azure Moon is just a better version of it, and it just deals a ton of damage instead. Sage of Judgment is an alternate defensive ring, which is basically a better version of the Ring of the Falcon. So depending on how much you want to spend on these signet rings, you've got honestly a variety of picks to pick from when it comes to defensive and utility based rings. The only thing that cannot be changed, and the one thing I would always recommend, is going to be Everflame Wings. I just can't see this ring going anywhere else. It's the best ring for Ramses in my opinion, and the best ring for Suleiman too, in putting a burn effect onto the target while increasing the strategy damage they take and offering you a silence. This is the one ring from all of my testing that I have done that honestly was the game-changing ring in 1v1s in other Ramses that I was competing against in the open field. So those are the different signet rings that you can be running. Let's talk about the gem choices in the game. When it comes to the gems, it's going to be pretty simple. For the strategy-based slots, you're going to either go for one of two different types. You're even going to go for maximum unit capacity. This is going to make sure that you have the most amount of troops in your march, which does allow you to do as much damage as possible with those tactical archers out there in the open field. Or if you want to go for tactical archers again, you can go for the all unit attack. This is one thing people do keep forgetting, that all unit attacks does boost up your damage output considerably, especially as an archer. If you're running tactical swordsman, this is completely different. You can check out that video guide instead. When it comes to the tactical hero gems, you're going to be going for all strategy. Always strategy, 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 because all of your heroes max out with strategy-based gems. So this one was quite simple to do. When it comes to the tactic gems, these are going to be even easier. For Ramses and for your Suleiman, you're going to be looking for your hero active skill gems. This is going to increase the amount of damage that you're going to be dealing with your heroes. The only other gem that you're going to be needing for these matches is going to be the hero recovery effect gems. This is going to be on heroes like your Theodora. Any support march in that configuration that's designed to recover and give you as much reduction as possible is going to be wanting healing base effect gems, because they're not going to deal any damage and they're not going to be designed to do any damage. So why waste putting damage onto them when it's not going to help? And finally, when it comes to your mount traits that you're going to be looking for, these are pretty simple. You're going to be looking for Spirit Bond. Mounted heroes active skill strategy damage increases by 10%. So this is going to be applied to your Ramses, applied to your Suleiman. Both of those tactical archers are going to be wanting Spirit Bond on their main mount traits. For all of the other heroes, yes, all of the other heroes that have War Tactic applied to all of those formations or have some base recovery, you've guessed it, you're going to be wanting Lifesaver here or Renewal. Renewal is a pretty good one too, which increases the healing effect with those gems to add up a bunch of healing. However, Lifesaver is reducing the amount of troop damage you take, so I would again try to get as much of this as possible for your march. So with that, we've gone through all of the Season 1 to Season 5 formations for free-to-players, low spenders, and the big boys that want to try and compete for those Ramses marches. So just to kind of go through all of the information in a nice summary at the end of the video, let's go through. Season 1, we've got our Suleiman, YSS, Theodora, free-to-play, and low-spend march. This is going to excel at doing a bursts amount of damage through the Suleiman and obviously YSS Theodora boosting up with a damage amplification in their signature skill. You can upgrade this in Season 3 to Charlemagne, replacing that YSS in the same slot, and it's going to run the exact same way as before. The only other upgrades that you could be aiming as a free-to-play player is getting that Skyward Knight and Tranquil Water for this formation. Alternatively, if you want to be a competitive player, you can go for Ramses. Ramses, Charlemagne, Theodora is your Season 3 first march that you're able to go for. Again, going to be through Mightiest Government event for Ramses, but alternatively, you can upgrade this march in Season 5 with two different alternatives. One being Zhu Liang instead of Theodora for more damage with less resilience, compared to running a Zhu Liang and Theodora build, which is way more tankier while putting more attributes onto your Ramses to hit harder but less often compared to a Charlemagne build. And with that, that is all of the tactical archer formations and information that I'm able to give you today. So let me know in the comments down below if you have been playing any of these formations and what is your favorite setup that you've been running in the game so far. If you thought this video was informational and you learned something, you know what to do. Smash a like, comment, and subscribe. Join here, the MrSneakyy army. We always like to grow each individual day this amazing community of Age of Empires Mobile. So until the next one, stay safe, stay sneaky, guys. Peace out.